Peace. Peace and elevation. This is your brother Mike X. Welcome to my YouTube channel, BruthaMikeXSpeaks. Please share this video. I hope that you are edified, encouraged, inspired by this video. And this is special for me, man, because look over my shoulder. Welcome to Edenwald houses. You know what I mean? This is where I grew up, in the Northeast Bronx, between the 2 and the 5 train, man. This is where I grew up, you know. Damn, a lot of emotions are swarming over me right now, man. Shout out to everyone who lived in Edenwald houses, man, between, you know, the 70s and the 80s, you know, the 90s. Shout out to everyone who still lives here. You know, I'm thinking about some of the people who supported me in my years of activism here in Edenwald houses. People like Yvonne Davis from 1154 East 229th Street. You know what I mean? Tanya DeVoe from 1132 East 229th Street. Catherine Jackson from 1175 Drive North East 229th Street. You know, everybody, man, who, you know, remembers the Open Mind Association, a group that we strive to give birth to here and did a lot of great work here. I wouldn't be the man that I am in my mid-50s, man, if I hadn't grown up in the projects, particularly here, Edenwald houses. You know, I'm like Tupac. You know, I'm a rose that grew through concrete. You know what I mean? As perfectly imperfect as I am, you know, I will never give up. This is who I speak to. You know, when I give the messages that I give, I speak to the people who used to live, who live in the projects, and who will live in the projects. This is who I speak to, and this is who I speak for. You know what I mean? I'm an unelected representative, man, of the souls that strive, you know, to come up through concrete like I did. You know what I mean? Edenwald houses is the largest project development in the Bronx. It's the 3rd largest project development in New York City. You know what I mean? Edenwald has like 2,038 apartments, you know, and I would estimate that Edenwald has up to 6,000 residents who live here. You know, this neighborhood that Edenwald rests in is labeled as an upper middle class community with pockets of poverty. You know what I mean? It rests, you know, there's a whole lot of private houses that surround Edenwald. You know, that's the upper middle class that they talk about. You know, and Edenwald itself is the so-called pocket of poverty. You know what I mean? Economically is what they're referencing, you know. But I know a whole lot of great and wonderful people who grew up here, who still live here. You know what I mean? And you know, they did the best that they can, you know, to be involved in community, you know, like some of the names that I referenced. And I'm not going to try to say all the names, you know, because from experience, I know that when you start naming names, man, you bound to leave someone out, and hurt feelings a lot of times results from that. So I'm not going to try to say all the names. So I just say, in a blanket type of way, shout out to everyone, you know, that I grew up with, that you know, everyone, wherever you're at, you know, whether you have passed on, like the 3 sisters that I mentioned, whether you're still here, whether you still live here physically, or whether, you know, you moved somewhere else. You know, I know a lot of people from Edenwald that have gone down south. You know what I mean? They've gone out west. You know, some have gone across seas. You know what I mean? But every single one of them, if you ask them, they would tell you that Edenwald shaped them in a strong, unique way, you know, and impacted their lives and gave them the strength of character, you know, the strength of resiliency to keep pushing. Let me say this right quick, man. Oh, I gotta, you know, damn, see, I was saying that I wasn't gonna shout out any particular names, but I can't not say this name. You know what I mean? My brother and partner, Ken Terrain, you know, from the We Can Get Along basketball tournament. You know what I mean? Responsible for the turf being, you know, upgraded. You know what I mean? Where these brothers, him and his partner, Rayshawn Rose, you know what I mean? They used to, every summer, hold a basketball tournament called We Can Get Along. And they used to service like 400 youth every summer. So I had to shout that out, man. You know what I mean? Because my brother, Ken Terrain, man, is really my brother. And we, you know, collaborated on what became known as We Can Get Along TV on Bronx Net Cable. You know, our Bronx Net Cable show ran from late 1999 to early 2007, man, right around the time when Barack Obama was ramping up his first presidency election. You know what I mean? And long live We Can Get Along, and long live We Can Get Along TV. But let me say this. A lot of people look at the projects and they think that the projects is where criminals and thugs and, you know, people who are down and out, you know what I mean, live, and that there's no power in the projects. Let me tell you something. If there was no power in the projects, man, all of these businesses that are out here on 229th Street and in the surrounding areas, man, selling their products. A lot of these businesses I know have been here for 40 years or more. You know what I mean? And some of these businesses have changed proprietorship, you know, ownership. You know what I mean? Dozens of times. You know, you got different owners, but you got the same stores. You know what I mean? That they switch hands. They make baskets full of money, tons of money, off of places like Edenwald, and then when they've made enough money for themselves, they sell that business to somebody else, usually an outsider, you know what I mean, so they can do the same thing. You know what I mean? Like Malcolm said, at sundown, they take that basket full of money to another part of the town. You know what I mean? And a lot of times the money that we earn and that we spend in the businesses that surround the places that we live, a lot of times that money is not reinvested, you know what I mean, into community improvement projects, you know, that the youth can benefit from, that the elders can benefit from, and that everybody else in between can benefit from, you know what I mean, and work in, you know, and be employed in, you know what I mean, so that they can steer clear of illegal activities just to get by. You know, we got to start learning how to reinvest in ourselves as a people again, the same way everybody else reinvests in themselves. And they build little Italies, and they build Chinatowns and little Koreas, you know what I mean? And, you know, and other racial, ethnic, cultural communities that they run and they own and they control, so that they can protect the innocence of their children coming up, so that they can protect the elders, you know what I mean? Instead of sending them to base, bro. Instead of sending them to, you know, the old folks' homes and things like that. They keep their elders safe, protected, and taken care of, and the resources that they spend in their businesses are invested to allow them to be able to do those types of things. You know what I mean? So Edenwald, even though it's looked upon as a pocket of poverty, with the numbers that I mentioned earlier, you know what I mean? Potentially 6,000 residents. Imagine if those 6,000 residents were united socially, you know what I mean, and collaborating socially so that they can pour the potential power of 6,000 united people into their politics. You know what I mean? We would be able to make the politicians respect us more and treat us better and not ignore us the way they presently do. Imagine if those 6,000 residents, you know what I mean, were united socially so that we can pour the potential power of that into our economics. You know what I mean? Where we can count on an economic block of 6,000 united consumers. You know what I mean? This was my dream and my vision for Edenwald. You know what I mean? And even though I'm an old man now, you know what I mean? I hope that some of the young people coming up behind me and us, you know, can benefit from me sharing that vision. You know what I mean? We are more than just sports and entertainment. We are more than just singers and dancers. You know what I mean? Let us begin to look for opportunities to learn trades and skills. You know what I mean? So we can become electricians again. So we can become carpenters again. You know what I mean? So that we can become whatever we want to become. So that we can legitimately invest in ourselves and invest in the places that we live, where instead of allowing outsiders to control the businesses, control the real estate, and basically control us because we depend upon them so much, because we don't have any stake in our food, clothing, and shelter. Let us begin to turn inwards again. You know what I mean? And learn your history, family, because what I'm talking about is not something that we never did before. You know, in the late 1800s, in the early 1900s, there were dozens of black independent autonomous communities where we practiced the type of social unity, group politics, and group economics that allowed us to build Black Wall Streets, that allowed us to build Rosewoods and other, you know, independent black communities, that outsiders that wanted to see us be nothing but slaves, nothing but dependent on them for their empowerment and our servitude, that they found ways to destroy and erase the history of, so that now we believe that we've never been anything in this world. And that's the thing that hurts me the most. You know what I mean? We need to learn our history as a people so that we can gain a greater understanding of how we got to this position that we're in presently. You know, if you don't know your history, you can't understand your present. And if you can't understand your present, you can't make the bold power moves that you need to be able to make on your own behalf as an individual and member of a larger collective. You know what I mean? So you got to do the knowledge. You got to do the knowledge. And those who want to see us remain dependent upon them, they strive to, as always, to keep us from knowing our history. You know what I mean? Like back in the days, hundreds of years ago, they made it punishable for black people to learn to read and write. You know, they can't make it punishable for you to learn to read and write no more. But what they could do is convince you that you have no history worth learning. You know what I mean? So that you turn away from mental awareness. You know what I mean? The expansion of your consciousness. You know, if they convince you that you have no history worth learning about, this is why so many black children drop out of school. You know what I mean? Because they're force-fed narratives, you know, that teach us all about white conquerors, you know, and white people. You know, they did this and they did that, and they're the masters of this and the masters of that. You know, black children coming up, finding no examples of black empowerment, you know what I mean, of black individuals, black men, black women, you know, being the inventors, being the politicians, being the artists, you know what I mean, being the business owners, you know. If look for and learn your history, you know. Not finding ourselves in the curriculums that they force feed us in these schools. Eventually, man, we lose our taste for the brainwashing, you know, that goes on every single day, and we drop out. You know what I mean? I've learned more about my history, and not just my history, because I'm a lifelong learner. You know, I've learned all types of things, culturally, spiritually, politically, you know what I mean? Economically. I've learned about other ethnicities and cultures. I've learned about other tribes and groups, you know, such as the 5%, Nation of Gods and Earths, such as the Nation of Islam, the Black Panther Party, you know what I mean? Shirley Chisholm, you know, the first black woman who ran for the presidency. You know, I can go on. And learning about those things, I've learned more after so-called school, you know, in my adult years, you know. And I know that knowledge is potential power. I know that the more I know, the more I can grow. Okay, so I'm at 16 minutes. I really don't want to make this into a marathon, you know, one of my marathon videos. I'm gonna wrap it up in a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to say again, there's tremendous potential power in the project developments. We have to learn how to stop just being neighbors of one another, who don't speak with one another, who don't learn to have empathy and compassion for one another. You know, it allows us to continue to be divided and conquered. And in our divided and conquered state, it's impossible for us to take advantage of the potential 6,000 united residents, you know, 6,000 united, politically motivated, not just voters, but lobbyists. You know what I mean? After you vote the person in, then you have to keep the pressure up on that person to make sure that they politically represent you. You know what I mean? One of the things that has burned my bridges as a resident who grew up here is the fact that I know for a fact that the local politicians, the city council person, the state assembly person, the state senate person, all three of those locally elected political seats have been controlled by black bodies for the last 35, 40 years here in the district that Edenwald resides in. You know, and because by and large the community has been divided and conquered and hasn't known how powerful that it is potentially, socially, politically, and economically, though we dominated those political seats, those politicians never represented Edenwald. They never gave Edenwald its due. You know what I mean? Once they got elected. The only time they would come to Edenwald is when they had a hotly contested political race and they wanted to use Edenwald for its voting power. Do you know what I mean? It sounds a lot like the presidential election right now, you know, where we have no friends in either party. You know, they ignore you until they need you. You know what I mean? And we got to take notice of that. And we got to start standing up for ourselves and each other. You know what I mean? So I'm going to sign off now, man. You know, peace and elevation. This is your brother Mike X. I shout out all of the residents, all of the souls who have lived in Edenwald, who still live in Edenwald, and will come to live in Edenwald in the near future. You know what I mean? Keep pushing, keep striving. You know what I mean? Learn how to love yourself and practice self-mastery as an individual so that you can then overflow the love, the empathy, and compassion that are all necessary ingredients, you know, to an independent, autonomous, and self-determining, thriving Black community. You know, if it could be done here, it will prove to be a positive example of what can be done in Gun Hill Road projects and Boston Sea Corps, you know what I mean, and other projects in the area. You know, Eastchester houses over there by Burke, you know, and all places in between. Keep pushing, keep striving. This is your brother Mike X. I love you. You know what I mean? Talk to you soon.